Ladies and gentlemen, Pastor David Alexander Bullock.
For as long as I can remember, I always wanted to be smart. Like really smart, like smarter than any white Socrates or intellectual Einstein. I wanted to be smart as hell. I wanted to be smart, I wanted to be black. Black like fists raised in the sky. Black like that dirt that comes from Egypt around the Nile. Black like Hershey's chocolate. Black, smart, black, religious, and I wanted to change the world. I was the son of two preacher's kids, Joan Ann Brown Bullock and Samuel H. Bullock Jr. I don't know if they realized what I wanted to be, smart, black, religious, and change the world, but somehow they fixed their minds to give me the right name. David Alexander Bullock. David, like that fella in the Bible, you know, he was short, he was young, but he was fine. Slew that giant Goliath with some stones and a slingshot and ran off with the king's daughter. David. Alexander the Great, you know that guy. He conquered lands unknown and worlds untold, and he also left at an early age. And then the bullock, I found out later something about that bullock, that actually the bullock was an animal that was sacrificed for people's sins and atonement. I didn't really like that bullock part, but I did like the bull of the bullock. You know, bullish, stubborn, have it your way, do it your way. I did it my way, Bullock. David Alexander Bullock, smart, black, religious, and gonna change the world. Born in Boston, Massachusetts, grew up in Brockton, somewhere between mommy and daddy and church and Harvard and Roxbury and Dorchester. I found a sense of what it meant to be smart, black, religious, and had that aspiration to change the world, nurtured. And I don't know if it was the Massachusetts landscape or if it was the atmosphere from Cambridge, but maybe, now that I think about it, it probably was something in the DNA, because my grandfather, Dr. Samuel H. Bullock Sr., he was smart and black and religious and changed the world. You know, Dr. Samuel H. Bullock Sr. was a great man because he built a church with his bare hands. That church is there right now. It's in Roxbury, Massachusetts. It's called Pleasant Hill. He saw a garbage dump that was owned by some Jews. And he bought that garbage dump. They saw garbage. He saw Pleasant Hill. He built the Pleasant Hill Missionary Baptist Church, fought for the elevators in downtown Boston to be integrated so black folks wouldn't have to use the stairs. They could use the elevators like white folks. Dr. Samuel H. Bullock Sr., author, radio host, traveled the world, went to Africa, would come back to Boston and show the folks there pictures from the motherland and give speeches about his travels and where he had been. He was one of two pastors that marched with Dr. Martin Luther King from Boston, went down south to march with this young upstart, Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King. Yeah, Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King, he was smart and black and religious. Changed the world. Went to Morehouse when he was 15, graduated from Morehouse, went to Croce Theological Seminary, went to Boston University. PhD in Boston University, studied under Border Parker Bowen and Edgar S. Brightman, took that personalistic philosophy and used it after he baptized it in Gandhi and changed the world. So yeah, I want to be like Granddaddy. I want to be like Dr. Martin Luther King. I want to be smart, black, religious, change the world. So at the age of 16, graduated from high school, and I'm headed to Morehouse. I'm going where Dr. King went. Morehouse, we get a heaping helping to live the day, fight for others. Injustice anywhere is a threat to justice everywhere. We also learn interesting stuff like rain don't stop the house. Snow don't stop the house. Nobody stops the house. Morris Brown don't stop the house. Clark don't stop the house. Spellman might shock the house. Yes, Lord. But nobody stops the house. Morehouse, graduated from Morehouse, age of 19, came back to the city of Detroit, enrolled in Wayne State University at the age of 19, entered the master's/PhD program. I'm on my way. I'm fine. I'm black. I'm getting smarter. I'm religious. I'm gonna change the world. I entered Wayne State, Morehouse, black college, where the band played better than the Gap Band. Wayne State, white, second-rate state school, kind of like a marshmallow and chocolate surrounded by black Detroit. At that time, the Wayne State team was known as the Tartars. Morehouse, radicalism, liberation, freedom. Go to class, fly. Get to class, proud. Black teachers, black men, black strong men keep coming on. That's Morehouse. Put your feet in the red clay dirt. Morehouse, Wayne State. I would come to discover later that my philosophical preparation at Morehouse had not prepared me for the work at Wayne State, and that my social indoctrination at Morehouse would alienate me at Wayne State. Morehouse philosophy was all about liberation and justice. Yes, we read Plato. Yes, we read Aristotle. Yes, we read Aristophanes and Marx, but we read them like black people read stuff. We didn't really care what Plato said. The question would be, what would Du Bois say about Plato? At Wayne State, them white teachers had never read Du Bois. They didn't know anything about Alain Locke, the Harlem Renaissance. They didn't even know black people could think. All white philosophy department, really, really small. Myself and one other black guy. We were the two raisins in the milk, so to speak. And the thing you gotta understand about Wayne State is that Wayne State is a second-tier school, and it's in Detroit, but it's not of Detroit, and it has a history of racism, but that racism is compounded by a white marginalism. So the professors in the philosophy department at Wayne State had a chip on their shoulder because they never thought in their mind when they graduated from Harvard or UC Berkeley or the University of Michigan that they would be reduced to teaching at Wayne State. You should have seen these white professors. I can see them now. William Stein. He thought his name was Willard Van Orman Quine, but he was not Quine, he was Stein. He talked and the spit would just collect at the edges of his mouth. He'd wear a bow tie, and he taught British empiricism, and we would talk about the transcendental method of Immanuel Kant and John Locke's empiricist approach to epistemology, and George Berkeley and the dialogues of Philus and Hylonus, and I would try to figure out what would Du Bois say. Stein, and oh yeah, Mike McKenzie. Mike McKenzie was a Southerner. It was like Charleston Heston teaching philosophy of language. He had a kind of racism encoded in his way of being, and we would spend all this time talking about how water is H2O, is not just a formula for identity, is the equal sign, the sign of identity, but water is H2O also is a phrase that rigidly designates what water must be, such that you don't even have to say water. You can say substance XYZ is H2O, or aqua is H2O, or because H2O must be water on any possible universe. And I would wonder, what does this have to do with black liberation? Mathematical logic with Susan Weinberg. Classics with Herbert Granger. Philosophy of religion taught by an atheist by the name of Bruce Russell. Ethics taught by this young homosexual fella who hated God from Texas named John Covino. I call him the homosexual apostle, because no matter what the class said on the syllabus, he would always try to promote being gay. I didn't mind. I was just trying to figure out what the class was about. Is this a utilitarian class, or is this something else? It was Wayne State's philosophy department, and I made it through. I was roughed up a little bit intellectually, but I made it over. I became a part of the analytic philosophical tradition. I was on my way. I got my master's and passed the language requirements, passed the mathematical logic requirements. I didn't even know they had mathematical logic at Morehouse. Well, math and logic went together. But I made it over. Now I'm ready. I'm headed to becoming maybe one of the less than 100 African Americans in this country that have an earned doctorate in philosophy. I'm telling you, I'm gonna be smart. I'm gonna be black. I'm gonna be religious. I'm gonna change the world. And as I get ready and stumble through ideas, what am I going to write about? Yes, I've got it. John Rawls, in The Theory of Justice, 1971, writes about justice. Political Liberalism, 1993, writes about justice and democracy, and he excludes religious language from liberal political engagement. Yes, I will write a dissertation on the role of religious language in democracy. I'm gonna prove John Rawls wrong. I'm gonna show him how smart I really am, baby. I'm gonna show him how the black church becomes the innovative center for pastors and people who of faith to enter politics and use their religious language to express their concern for the poor and fight for the soul of a nation. Yes, black is beautiful, baby. I'm going to show how religion can lead to, yes, change in the world. I'm working on trying to put together my proposal, and then something happens. Wayne State happens. You know, I went to U of D Jesuit High School in Morehouse with this guy named LBJ Williams, and some years ago, he was running for state rep for the first time. He called me, Bullock, what's up, bruh? You mind if I put your name on my flyer, my kicker card? Nah, man. You put my name, go ahead, man, use my name. You need to see it? I don't need to see it, man. You know my name. David Alexander Bullock. Just put it on there, man. Send it out. Hope you make it over. Turns out that John Covino, this young teacher of ethics from Texas, who actually had done his PhD on Hume, was trying to become immersed and enmeshed in the Detroit cultures a lot of the new hipsters are doing now. And he moved into Detroit, and he didn't know anything about black folk. He didn't know nothing about Detroit. And But he moved him to Detroit, and that flyer of LBJ Williams running for state rep ended up in John Covino's mailbox. And John Covino picked up the flyer, and on the flyer it read, endorsements for LBJ Williams for state rep, endorsed by Dr. David Alexander Bullock. John Covino sends an email to Robert Yannell, who is my committee chair, and all of the people on my committee. And the email reads something like this: David Bullock is a liar. He is a fraud. He is telling people in Detroit that he already has an earned PhD in philosophy. He is disrespecting the process. He is demeaning the department, and something must be done about this. I read the email, what? David Bullock is a liar. Now, David Bullock might be a lot of things. Might be stubborn. Might be a little arrogant to some people with small minds. Might be hard to take sometimes. But he is not a liar. Besides, why would I have to lie about my progress at Wayne State? Don't nobody in Detroit even know nothing about philosophy department at Wayne State. I was upset, and I was younger than I am now, and I didn't know that you weren't supposed to say certain things to certain people if you wanted to get out of the philosophy department. So I pulled out my keyboard. I'm gonna learn these white folks today. Well, Dr. Covino, number one, you white. Which means you might know Hume, and you might know what it means to be gay, and you may know what it's like in Texas, but you don't know nothing about how black folk talk to each other. Let me suggest, number two, that you read Dr. Nathan and Julia Hare, two black sociologists that write about a number of things, sir, but one of the things they write about is the use of the word doctor in the African-American context. Three, let me point out, since I'm suggesting you read it, that when you read it, you will discover that they suggest that doctor, D-R-D-O-C-T-A-H, or D-R-S, a doctor can be said or written not to suggest somebody has an M.D., J.D., or Ph.D., but just that they bad. In the black community, it's a whole lot of doctors. Can't read, can't write, but they doctors. Might I point out to you, sir, as I continue my email, that LBJ Williams was not suggesting that I had an earned PhD. It did not say David Alexander Bullock, PhD in philosophy. It said Dr. David Alexander Bullock, because in the black community coming from Morehouse, I'm a bad man. You know, they say you can tell a Morehouse man, but you can't tell him much. I close my email simply by saying, hopefully, after you do your research, you will discover the limitations of your educational background. You will stop imputing to yourself knowledge about black people just because you know Hume, and you will apologize and we can move forward. God bless you. Robert Yannell, the chair of my committee, in 2 minutes flipped an email back. I'm off of Bullock's committee. Turns out I was a little too uppity. Turns out I had ruffled some feathers. Turns out the myth of black intelligence, when it became real in that email to white men in philosophy departments, shattered their ability to step back and admit there were some things they didn't know about Negroes. So that was the end. of my PhD quest at Wayne State. That's all right, though. I just went on to the University of Chicago. It was better than Wayne State anyway. I mean, this is Ivy League. This is private school. I should have went here after Morehouse in the first place. In Chicago, I'm on the south side. I run into Jesse Jackson's Rainbow Push, meet great minds, black minds, white minds. The greatest professors in the world come through that university, and it was enlightening and exciting. While I'm there, my father calls me, and he says, there's a church in Highland Park, and they're looking for a pastor. And I said, that's great. You know somebody interested? Son, this is your church, my church. I told you, man, I'm in Chicago, baby. I'm at the University of Chicago. I'm reading Plato in the Greek for fun. Send your resume in. Yes, sir. I told him I'd send it in, but I didn't tell him when. I looked at the deadline. Turns out the deadline would be passed in 3 days, so I waited 2 weeks. Sent my resume in, and finally, they got it. Long story short, I ended up becoming pastor of this church in Highland Park. Now I'm in Detroit and Chicago at the same time, pastoring black folk that never had a pastor who could read. Black folk who think Jesus will fix it was a scientific formula. Black folk that just want to have a good time. Make me feel good, Reverend. Rub up against me every Sunday. Make me calm. Back and forth at the church in Highland Park. Finally, I leave Chicago, come back to Detroit full time. Church in Highland Park NAACP restarted in the basement of that church. Now we're kind of living what we read and what we saw in Eyes on the Prize. Morehouse is coming alive with philosophical rigor. And Highland Park NAACP Freedom Fund dinner. And the dilemma there was, should we charge the people of Highland Park $175 for chicken? I don't think they can afford it. Maybe the chicken should be free. And we ought to do something different. NAACP, the Greater St. Matthew Baptist Church, ran for city council 2013. Became a reality TV show star. Preachers of Detroit. All the while fighting for social justice issues with a philosophical lens that most activists couldn't buy if they had the money. Because, you know, usually the activists are just, hell no, we won't go, or we'll be back, or no justice, no peace. But where's the analysis? Where is the breakdown? Where is the analytical framework, the socio-political understanding of what poverty is and how we can stop it, what racism is, how we can identify it? How do we merge W.E.B. Du Bois and Immanuel Kant? How do we bring together Booker T. Washington and Willard Wenham and Quine and then baptize it in the Holy Ghost and make it make sense for people? Well, that's the work that we were doing. And I went to the Whitney one day while doing that work. I don't remember how long after defeating Public Act 4 this was, or being on Rachel Maddow talking about emergency management in Michigan, fighting for democracy and democratic rights, or feeding tens of thousands of people in the city of Detroit, fighting against the scourge of mental illness. Don't remember how long after one of these many battles we've been in this was, but I was at the Whitney, and I stood in the doorway, and who comes right toward me? Robert Yano. You remember Robert Yano was the chair of my committee. He was the guy that flipped the email after John Covino sent his dirty bomb to my committee, and he was the guy who began the domino effect that ended my aspiration for the PhD at Wayne State University. He looked at me. I didn't even recognize the guy. You know, what's up, man? You know, it's Detroit. What's going on? And he said, David Alexander Bullock, I'm sorry. I said, well, thank you for your apology, but no need to be sorry. I said, what y'all did was the best thing that could have ever happened to me. I said, if you all had not sabotaged my quest to be stuck in an ivory tower, I'd be in some small state school teaching Plato, but now I'm not there. I'm here. I'm in Detroit, and I'm using the tools philosophy gave me, the training Morehouse instilled in me, the deep spiritual fervor I learned from my religious background. I'm using all of that to change the lives of not just my people, but all people. I said, who would have known that you would have been one of the factors that would get me to where I wanted to go from day one, that you would help me become smart, black, religious, and change this damn world.
Reverend David Alexander Bullock.